Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Caslin from Always Acting Up Podcast. This is the podcast where we chat all things entertainment industry, tips and tricks on how to better your career, tips for success from individuals who have already achieved it. This episode, we are going to be talking all about shoddy contracts and getting yourself into jobs that maybe you wish that you didn't, stock photography, and so much more. Before we do so, I have to give a shout out to all of you guys who have been following along on the podcast and blog. As you know, I could not have done it without you. So, a quick round of applause for you. You guys are the best. Okay, I am joined and I am so excited because I have not only one, but two guests today. And this will be my first episode in a long time with two guests. So bear with me if there are any struggles. I think it's going to be awesome because we have a really, really great conversation today. So I have two guests. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about them because it's pretty exciting. My first guest, she has a supporting role on the Hallmark Christmas movie Holly and Ivy, which I think is coming out maybe this year. I'm not sure yet.
It came out 2 years ago, but I mean, it plays
Psych.
all the time.
Psych, 2 years ago. Co-stars on the Oprah Network's Queen and Sugar and All Black TV's Craig Ross Jr.'s Monogamy. Woo-hoo. She has been in several national campaigns and created and starred in two, not one, but two web series, The Dating Games LA and The Bench. My first guest, everyone, welcome Adrienne McLean.
Hi.
Ooh, you got another applause.
Thank you.
I should have asked you before because I know I see you all the time, but I'm like, did I actually say your last name correctly?
Yeah, you said it fine. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, welcome, Adrienne. And of course, we have another guest today. We have let's see, she has a lot of things going on as well. Co-stars on BET's 20s and ABC's Station 19. She is the Metaverse Girl in Facebook's Meta video, the 2022 Super Bowl commercial with Jerry Rice. She does have a podcast of her own. Everyone, welcome my second guest, Crystal. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. Crystal Gix. Did I see that right? There you go. Welcome. Now, I did ask Crystal how to say her last name, but I feel like I butchered and botched that. Crystal, how do you say your full name again?
Crystal Gix. You said it right.
Oh, okay, I did. I just couldn't even say your first name properly, so that's where we had a little bit of struggles in the first place. Well, thank you. How are you ladies doing? I'm so excited to have both of you on this podcast.
Yay, you're excited to be here.
I'm
Well,
very
excited to be here,
excited.
I should say.
Yeah, we had actually chatted about doing this podcast quite a few months ago, but you guys know I always have delays. Everyone's schedule's busy, and we are finally making this happen. And so I think we're going to have a really great episode. Adrienne and I have a ton of conversations about the industry all the time. And I was like, we need to like put this on a podcast because some of the things we talk about, I'm like, oh, how do we know this? How did I know that? How do you know this? How did this happen? Like, so I'm glad we're finally here. And Adrienne was telling me that Crystal actually has a similar story. So I'm going to tell you like one of the jobs that I did, and I'll tell you guys about it. And I still think it's crazy. Crystal, I know you have a similar story. Adrienne, I recently saw one of your campaigns while browsing the internet the other day. I was like, hey, this is you. Which, by the way, I've seen Adrienne in like a couple campaigns all around town here in Las Vegas. So it is really cool going back and being like, hey, I know her. I know her. I know her. And that's the cool thing about here in Vegas. Okay, so I have to tell you guys, I did this job one time and I was on a roll with like booking jobs. And I was like, let me just, it's another job. I'm on a roll. And I went on backstage.com, which I did just do a backstage.com review. If you guys want to check that out, you can check that out on my YouTube page as well, which is, I think, Caslin Rose. I don't know, type in my name into YouTube, you'll find it. But I did a review on backstage.com because I used to have an account. I kind of still do. Anyways, there was this job and they were looking for actors to do like quick little testimonials. And I was like, oh, well, I can do this at home And all I had to do was create a very quick video and say like a couple things about why I like this. What was it? This gaming thing. I like this gaming. I won so much money, blah, 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 blah. Obviously, it was all BS. It was made up. I've never played it. So it was 100% just lip service and talking. And I submitted it. It took about 5 minutes or less to create. I submitted it and they went ahead and said, this has been accepted. Here's your $100. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am. And I'm all excited because I was like, dang, that was like the easiest $100 I've ever made in my entire life. It took 3 minutes or less, and I didn't have to do any editing. It was literally me just talking to the camera about why I love this game, like a couple sentences. And they did send me a contract, but obviously I didn't read it because I'm like, it's a stupid job. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I don't think anyone's ever going to see this because honestly, most of the time you don't even see the projects that you're in. So I just figured like, whatever, like, just do it $100. And then before you know it, I am getting DMs from everybody all over the world. I'm talking Brazil, in Germany. I'm talking all over the US. People, hey, I saw you. Hey, is this you? Spotted, tagged. And I'm like, oh my God, I cannot believe that this is like a worldwide thing right now for like 3 years. I'm not even talking like a quick, like 6 months sort of thing. This was like 3 years of me and this silly little testimony that I made $100 for all over the world, 4 years. And I
Hey,
made,
but here's the thing. At least it was only 3 years. Like, did the
yes,
contract say 3 years?
I don't know because I didn't really
Oh,
read
you
it.
didn't read the
Ah,
contract. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, that was on me and I was like, I cannot believe that this is still airing. Like it got to a point where I was like, I guess it's done. I haven't gotten a spotted message in a long time, but apparently, yeah, it was still going and going and I think it's done. But people would be like, "Hey, so did you actually win any money?" And like I don't know if I was actually able to be like, "Hey, I've never actually played this game before. I was literally a hired actor." So, I had to kind of keep quiet about that. So, yeah, that's my story. I know you guys have some as well, so
you got me
please share
boiling. I'm
so I'm
boiling
not
right
the
now.
only one. Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
literally boiling because that happened to me when I first moved back to LA this last time. You're doing whatever you can to survive. You're doing background, you're doing audience work, all the grunt work that you don't want to do. And when I first got here, I auditioned for some really low paying gigs. Now, when I was in Houston, I came from Houston, even though I'm from California. I was making 10 times, 4 times the amount. But when I got here, I started submitting myself on LA Casting. And I submitted to uh, this hair tool project. And it was supposed to be a testimonial. They'll have me come in, they'll do my hair, and I'll just talk about the product. And they'll pay me $150. Well, I came in and I did it on Valentine's Day of 2019 and it took off like wildfire. I've had probably about a total of 8 million views on this project
Oh my god.
across all platforms.
Oh my god.
They said that they were going to tag me. They said that they had the rights to my social media handles and that they were going to use them. I was like, cool, I'll get exposure. It's $150, but I'll get exposure. And, they'll give me a hair tool. Perfect, fine. I do it. I had to do my own hair. Well, I had to do my own makeup and I had to, wash my hair and everything. I had to bring my own wardrobe and I had to get myself there. And they cash apped me or Venmoed me the money before I left. Like, talk about ghetto. So in the contract, it said that it was in perpetuity.
Oh no.
Yeah, so you can still find this project. And even I was in such a tight spot financially, that was gas money for me. So
Mhm.
they asked me to come back 2 weeks later. And I did. I was like, oh, this is exciting. They like me. I'm going to get exposure. I'm going to do this. And I came back and they straightened my hair again. And they gave me the same amount of money. They didn't even feed me, they didn't even offer me water. And they were so
Yikes.
nice, they were so, so nice. Um, and then they had me come back. Well, I said, my video is doing so well. I said, I've got, 4 million views here and I've 2 million views there and 400,000 views over here. And people were tagging me. It was the spotted thing that you were talking about. Like, that's the only reason why I even knew it was out, because people were like, oh my God, Crystal, is this you? Oh my God, look at you. Your hair is so
Mm.
luxurious and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm going to be famous. And they did. They hit me back a few months later. I was like, okay, they're going to hit me back. But something struck up in me. And I was like, you know what? You need to ask for more money because
Mm-hmm.
you're in the millions of views now. And they didn't even use your handle like they said they would. And so,
Ooh.
yeah, nothing. I didn't get the tool. I didn't get the handle usage or anything, because everybody kept saying, we want to know who this girl is. Who is she? Who is she? And so I would like be in the comment section like, hey, it's me, like for whatever reason. So long story long, come June, they hit me back up and they said, hey, you did such a great job. We really love you, blah, blah, blah. We wanted to know if you can come back in on Tuesday. And I said, actually, I can. However, given that my video's done so well, blah, 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 I was wondering, if we can bump my pay, because it's done so well. And they were like, oh, I said, I've made 10 times that amount for gigs, on average at the bare minimum. And they were like, oh, we don't have it in the budget. I was like, you guys can't even do half
Lies.
of what I'm asking. And they were like, no, sorry. And I was like, okay, well then just, hit me back when you have a budget. I never heard from them again. Never heard
Wow.
from them again. And they're telling me that they didn't have the budget, and I sold out all of your product. They were back ordered for months because
Oh
of my
my God.
videos. Back ordered.
Wow. For like
So anyway,
$150 and they couldn't even give you one?
and the product is $150 a pop.
Mm.
And they
Yeah.
sold out and they were back ordered. And you're telling me you couldn't give me more than what the price value of the product was for my
Wow.
testimonial?
Is it still circulating? Is it still out and out
It's
and
still
around?
on the internet. It's still on the internet, and every so often they'll put a video out and it'll be the same video. And so it's just racking up millions and millions of views. It's on YouTube, it's on Facebook. Facebook is what really took off. I mean, the shares, the amount of shares. And then they had me
Mm.
lie. Who was that? That was you said you never played the game before, right?
Never
I
played
had
it.
I didn't know what type my hair was. They were like, "Oh yeah, say you're 4C." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm 4C." And everybody was ripping me in the comments. They were like, "Girl, you ain't got no 4C hair." But I didn't know. I'm just doing what they told me to say. Most of it was legitimate, but that 4C part was not. I didn't know what I was talking about. I was just doing what they told me. But anyway, that's my horror story. That's one of my horror stories.
Wow. And you know what's frustrating about that is, like per million views on YouTube, it's like $10,000 per like per like a million. It's like $10,000 or something along those lines. Plus the products that they're selling off of you, and you're like, wow, you couldn't even give me one. Like at minimum, you couldn't even give me one. Did you have you did have a contract for yours, correct?
I had a contract. I read it in perpetuity.
Can you explain what that means in perpetuity?
In perpetuity, those are two words.
Listen up here. This is where you got to pay attention.
In perpetuity means that they have your footage and can use it forever.
Mhm.
Forever. Forever, meaning in 10 years from now, you could be a famous actor. And if you did some scummy, plumbing company commercial, they can re-put it out and just capitalize on the fact that your famous self had done it with them 10, 15, 20 years ago. They'll put it back out. They have ownership of your image and your likeness with their product or service forever, and they can put it out as much as they want or however little they want, and you only get paid what you got paid.
Yeah. That's really hard. And it's hard because as actors, we're like, "Ooh, a job. Ooh,
Mhm.
exciting. Like, ooh, something we get to like put on our resume and have footage." But it's like was that for me $100, for you 150? Like, was it worth it?
No.
No. Yeah, and it
No.
jeopardizes a lot. Adrian, you have a similar, I don't know if how similar it is, but I know I saw your campaign everywhere and you were like, "Yeah, this has been around for a little
Yeah, but I
while."
think mine's a little yeah, I think mine's a little different though. And I think and so I will say like the one that you brought up, I think that's a little different. I mean, I like it's a 5 year. I thought it was 2 years. It's a 5 year. So I was like, okay, it's 5 years. But I mean, I did not get paid $100. So I am okay with what I got paid. The fact that they've been using it a lot, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It paid a real bill. It didn't pay gas money. It paid a real bill. So I'm okay with that. But yeah, I mean, the new actors, like that's the trap. That is the trap. They will get you that first few years of you acting and just trying to like just make a living and just wanting to get more footage and just wanting to feel like you've done something. Those contracts, they say in perpetuity.
Mhm.
They like that's the first words. I mean, especially if you have an agent like and they're sending you stuff. I look, if it says in perpetuity, I'm done. Like we're good. I don't even care if it's a couple $1,000s. You know what I'm saying? It depends. It really depends how bad, um, like what it is and if I think I can do it. Like if you have it in perpetuity and you're doing like maybe like a local Ford commercial or a local Toyota commercial and it's in perpetuity, like they could literally, as Krista was saying, they can literally use that for the rest of your life. And then you can't do that Chrysler. You can't do that Honda. You can't do those things because now you are Crystal Gix, headlining, like doing all these things. But Ford, local Ford in Houston or whoever that was, you know what I'm saying? They can be like, look, we use Crystal Gix. And it's like, well, yeah. And again, has it ever happened? I've never heard of that story like I've never heard of that happening to someone, but like the guy from Shang-Chi, where it's like he didn't do that campaign that's going everywhere now that he was in Shang-Chi. You know what I'm saying? Like he did a basic photo shoot, and so now it's everywhere. So it can happen. Is it worth it in the
Yeah,
moment?
we're definitely going to talk about Simu Liu from Shang-Chi and a little bit in stock photography. And I think that's a good point that what you mentioned is like, here's what you have to think about when you're doing something like that in perpetuity. If you are doing a commercial for Ford and they lock you in for Ford, you can't do anything else because why would Chrysler, why would Chevy want to work with you when you've already branded yourself and you're associated with this other company because you're no longer a Ford user or whatever. You can't mix it back and forth. You can't be representing two competing brands at the same time. And those are some things like I would have never thought about when I was younger. I would have just been like, sign me up. I want to do it all. But yeah, for something that's like local and regional, you could jeopardize yourself from a huge national campaign where you could be making 4 or 5 times, 6 times what you were paid for those smaller regional projects. So like those are things like I would have never thought about at all.
But I think it's really important to classify what you were saying in terms of regional versus national, because especially a new actor, you might not understand, like you might be living in Houston, you might be living in Vegas, you might be living wherever. And so this local company, Finley, John Hughes, whoever that owns this particular branch of a car company, right? In your local market, they are now asking for your image. And so they are the ones that are doing it. It's not on the national level. And national level, for people that may not know, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And what we're also saying is people like Flo, who's doing these insurance commercials, she's getting a check every single time that commercial runs. If you're doing these local regional commercials, you're only getting that one check for the day that you were on set and it's done.
It's done.
You know what I mean? So you need to understand the difference between these two things. There's union contracts that you're getting a check every time it runs versus you got paid one day and you will never see another check.
Yeah. I wanted to piggyback on that, which was also taken into consideration if it's not a commercial, if it's an industrial. For industrials, you can do something that's exclusive or, excuse me, not exclusive, but in perpetuity because why? No one will ever see it outside of those within that business or company. No one outside will see it. So it's not in competition with Ford or with Honda. I did take that into account with the hairstyling tool, because the likelihood of me actually doing another flat iron or pressing comb or any type of straightening tool was very unlikely. Like, I knew Revlon's not going to hit me up and be like, hey, and I'm going to jump to it, because I don't straighten my hair like that. And I'm a naturalista. So even though I do like to wear my hair straight, I'm probably not going to do a Revlon commercial for hair like that. So I took that into consideration. And so, along with understanding what the difference between, a national and a regional, also understanding that a lot of times you can get away with doing a perpetuity if it is an industrial, because no one will ever see it. And you could just take your 1,500, 2,000, 2,500, whatever they're paying you, and you can go on about your day and you don't have to worry about that. But those are special situations. And that's a lot of times how a lot of actors make their money when they're not, super big and busy on TV. So
That's also a good point, because a lot of projects, companies need them for like internal videos that
mhm.
are used maybe for training. Like, I did a project for another car company. I'm not going to say which one, but I did it, and it was just for training purposes for the specific brand, and nobody is ever going to see it unless you work for that company. So for me, that was worth it. And I also was thinking about it, and I think it's something to consider as well when we're talking about national versus like local and regional. Here, I've talked about on this podcast a lot. I do live in Las Vegas, so it is a smaller market. However, it's still saturated, but it's not nearly as saturated as a place like Las Vegas. I'm sorry, LA, New York, Chicago, Atlanta. It's not nearly as big. So there's something you have to think about as well, is maybe you don't want to put your face on a brand for the hopes of maybe getting an opportunity to be on a big, I guess we're just keep using Ford, to be in a massive national Ford commercial later, but the chances of getting an audition specifically for that Ford company or for a national is much more difficult. So I think there's like a balance you have to try and find in there as well, because there are so many people, and it's almost like your stars have to just align to even get those big national commercials. So it's like, do you want to take the smaller project now, or do you want to cross your fingers and hope to get the opportunity later? I think that's something you may have to consider as well. I don't know how you guys think about that.
I don't know if this is okay, but I
Sure.
kind of disagree with you about that. I mean, I think that if you are an actor and you are really pursuing this, because we've all met people who are just like, oh, I just kind of fell into this. Do you know what I mean? So we've all met those people. But here's the thing: if you really do think that this is something that you want to do, and you do want to get into those larger markets, it's happening. And the other thing I think that's great about, especially post pandemic, or just like the pandemic has opened up in some ways, and please, they're understand, like, there's two sides to this coin, but the availability of the smaller markets. I mean, I know for a fact there was a huge Ford campaign that was actually shooting in Texas, and it was aligned with like the NFL. And so they were casting out of Los Angeles and in Texas markets. And I have a New Mexico agent. And so I got my audition through my New Mexico agent in Texas. So I don't think that we can just say that, like, oh, what are the chances of you, like doing like John Hughes's Ford, commercial in Texas, but then having being up against a national commercial. Mm-hmm. It's very possible. So again, just be aware of the brand that you are aligning yourself with. And for me, and to any new actor, the first thing you should look at, we're all gonna look at the rate first. Like, we're all gonna look at the rate. Then look at the usage. You know what I mean? Rate, then usage. Those are the two things you need to look at immediately before you say, yes, I'm committing to this audition. And if they're not aligned with where you are as an actor, or where you are, where your goals are, then those are the things that you should think about. If you're just, oh, I was doing this as a side hustle and this is whatever, then fine, then do that. Because you probably aren't trying to become the next Denzel, the next Viola. You know what I mean? Like, that's not your goal. But if you say, if you even say, I just want to have one line on a TV show where I give so-and-so, you are on the path of trying to do something bigger. And so maybe look at those two things, the rate
Yeah,
and the
they
usage.
are shooting in Texas a lot, like big nationals. I had a friend who shot a few nationals with the new State Farm guy, and he's got, he's SAG now and all this
Is
other
this
stuff.
Jake?
And his
Jake from
the
State Farm?
the new Jake,
Oh,
the
there's a new
younger black
Jake.
guy. So,
Oh,
but that's
yeah,
not
yeah,
my
that's the
friend.
one.
My friend was in the video with him,
Mhm.
and he's getting checks regularly every quarter because they're still airing. I also got my national this year out of market. I wasn't
Woo,
here in LA.
woo.
Yeah, I was it was in San Francisco. There's hardly any SAG union work up there, but I got my commercial there, and I also had to waiver, like, okay, it was for DraftKings, this online gaming, and what do you call it? What do you guys do in
Sports betting?
Vegas? Gambling, yeah, gambling,
Sportsbook?
betting, yes,
Gambling?
yeah.
Yeah.
The betting, the online betting or whatever. This It's so new. So me doing a draft, and DraftKings is like the king of it all. So the odds of me like running into an issue were slim, and it's a national commercial. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
gonna take it,
Mhm.
And then also last year, I had an audition for one of the largest insurance companies, and then I got a call back, and I got pinned. And needless to say, I didn't shoot it. I didn't book it, the whole thing eventually. And a few months later, my manager at the time goes, "Oh, here's another audition." And the audition was for something else, but one of the terms was it was going to be under car insurance. And I was like, no, I had to cancel. I had to like decline it because I'm not going to risk my I'll say what it was. It was Progressive. I'm not going to risk getting my Progressive booking for Joe Blow. It was
Mhm.
smaller, it wasn't paying nearly as much, and it wasn't national. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm holding off because if I got to a callback, I know they'll call me again.
Yes. Especially if you got that far the first time, like, they know you, they liked you, they wanted you, they're probably just there wasn't enough roles available or anything could have been
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, friend and myself, we both got pinned, and they were doing like several commercials, different takes. So, yeah, it's like I'm not gonna ruin one opportunity for something smaller. So,
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, these are things you have to kinda think about, like, getting the audition, like, any audition sometimes is, like, a big win because there's so many people who submit for these jobs. I mean, I'm talking, like, thousands. You guys think I'm talking, like, hundreds. I'm talking thousands sometimes are all submitting for one role in
hmm
a commercial or a job. So to get the auditions, it's like, "Oh, yeah, I made it." And sometimes then you're like, "Oh, but maybe this is not the right fit for me. I'm gonna have to decline at this time." So, yeah, just things to think about that, you know, you might wanna consider so you don't get locked into a job for $100 that goes viral worldwide. Hey.
or 4 years long, and you can't use any competitors or do any commercials with competitors or whatever.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because you were mentioning YouTube and, like, millions of views. I did um, a video, like, I don't even wanna talk about it that much because I don't want you guys going on there and, like, researching it and finding me. But I did this one job one time, and it has about 4 million views as well, and I was hosting it. I was, like, a little sick that day. I wasn't feeling so good, so the tone was off with what the contents of the video was talking about. However, it's one of their most viewed videos ever, and it's got, like, 4 million views, I kid you not, and the entire comment section, which is, like, 3,000 comments, I am not kidding, is trashing me about how terrible I was, how awful I was. This bitch is crazy. She's so rude. And I was like, thank God they didn't tag me in this because I don't need this. I know some of you guys are going to watch this and like go and try and find it or whatever it is, but it was like, man, like, and they don't want to get rid of it because with 4 million views, they're making money all the time off of this video. And again, I probably made remember it was like $20 an hour. So I probably made $60. But it was at the time where I was like, yeah, I need to exposure. I need to gain my footage. I need to learn how to do hosting and green screen. I need the material. Just not thinking about things of that nature. I mean, I'm talking the entire comment section is just trashing me. So that's fun. Yeah. Anyways,
It
let's chat.
happens.
Let's chat about stock footage. Well, you know what? I thought I was like, let me ask them to like take it down because this is so embarrassing. It's incriminating, and I wasn't feeling well that day, so I was like, let me like perk it up when I should have like the content and everything was like sad. But I was like, I'm not trying to sound like I'm dying. I'm just literally sick that day. So I flipped it, and it was a little too far. So that's what happens, you guys. That is what happened. Um, so yeah, let's talk about stock photography. Adrian, you were mentioning, I Googled yesterday how to say his name, so I didn't mess this up, but I probably still do. Simu Liu from Shang-Chi. I think we all heard about it right when the movie was being released. He actually did some stock photography. I don't know if you remember. It was just some stock photography for a company, and he must have signed an in perpetuity contract, and his face is on buses, textbooks. It is everywhere. And so, yeah, let me tell you guys what stock photography is. Stock photography is basically photographers. They either want to practice or they're going to go and take pictures and submit them on stock photography sites. That way, if any random company USA pay a couple bucks and now they own that picture, if that's what you signed away for with stock photography. So your face that you may have gotten like 50 bucks, or maybe you even did it as a freebie in exchange for photos, your face has now been sold to a massive textbook company, and you're going to be in textbooks around the world. And because the photographer signed papers and you signed papers, they have the right to do so. So it goes along to what we were saying as well. Like, your face could be the face of anything. Anybody can buy these. Yeah,
I have a
anybody can
story.
buy these photos. Like, you could be the face of a dirty sorry, I was just thinking like an STD company, and you had no idea. Anybody can buy these stock photos, and you have no say because you signed your rights over in stock photography.
So
Yeah.
I have a story which I think is kind of funny. So there's a couple of conventions in the world, right, where like they hire models to help the photographers
Mm-hmm.
practice, right? So these are conventions. As an actor, you find ways to supplement your income and things like that. I mean, conventions, brand ambassador work, whatever. I mean, don't like let's all be serious. Like Ubering, like we all
Mm-hmm.
have a side hustle of some kind, even if your main focus is acting, right? So I heard about this girl who did this for a convention. So at a convention, they didn't make us sign any kind of waivers at this convention because again, we're only there to assist with like the learning of whatever like these classes and things like that are teaching. This dude that she met at this convention was in Mexico that she knew. He took a picture. She was a full cutout, like a full like cutout in a wedding dress for
Mm.
Nikon cameras. And she was like, I took that picture at the
Ooh.
convention. She ended up contacting her agent, or someone ended up getting in touch with Nikon and was like, I never signed a release for this. So they had to pay her or take the whole ad down in Mexico. So it's just crazy, like how people's definition of stock photography is very different. Like, I had someone who was like, oh, I'll give you free headshots if you do stock photography. And something in my brain was like, yeah, I want free headshots. Like, I need free headshots. But I was like, I never made the appointment with this person because something was just like, be careful. Because I had another friend who was on the box of like a dye like a just for men,
Mm-hmm.
like like the hair dye. And so his face is right there, whatever. And he was like, yeah, I did a stock thing for like $100, like, back in the day. And it's on, I mean, you look for Just for Men, like he's
Oh
one of those
man.
guys, like guaranteed, like in the, like the Just Black, or, like Cocoa Bean, Midnight Cocoa Bean, like he's definitely on the box. And so that stuff gets you. But if you sign that contract, you've already written away your waiver. If you didn't, like, oh girl with the wedding dress, you can actually try to track that down and get some money for it. So there's two
Wow.
sides to
I
that
mean, good thing she
story.
tracked it down, because I feel like a lot of people are a little bit more passive and they're like, well, it's there, whatever. I'd be like, no, that is like mine. But yeah, it's crazy because like, now Simu's like a huge star and he was in this massive, massive movie, and you still see his face circulating on, buses or whatever stock photography he did. I mean, look, I have you guys know I have a blog, Always Acting Up, podcast and blog, which you can find on my website. But I go on there all the time on these stock photography websites, and I get some free photos because you're usually allowed like a certain amount per month, and I can go and there's pictures of actors and models, and all I have to do is click download, and I have the legal right to do so because it was on the website. And I mean, that's it. I'm only going to use them for my blog and website, but you can use those photos for anything as long as you sign the release and agree to do so, which is insane. And a lot of times, like you were saying, Adrian, is that it sounds like a good idea because, yeah, I could totally use some new headshots, and headshots are very expensive. So, an opportunity for free headshots or maybe even $50 sounds great. Um, but yeah, you know what else? I don't know if a lot of people know, but a lot of times the pictures are like raw, unedited images because I have to go in and tweak them. So, like, your not good shots, like the shots that you're like, oh God, please, I don't want anyone to see them, they will be up there because they also look for um, photos with all different kinds of expressions on them. Like, I'm telling you, like, some of the photos I've seen, I'm like, I bet they don't even know this is up here. I really do. I don't
They
think they have any idea.
probably like fake in the before and afters for like these skincare companies and stuff like that. Those infomercials.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've seen them do that with the filter and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really crazy. I think it's something to think about and consider when you're seeing stock photography and to make sure to sign your papers. So, like, what would you guys do? How would you avoid getting yourself into a situation where maybe, like, I don't know, do you guys like sit there and skim through like everything on your contract or their keywords? Like, what do you think the best suggestion would be and solution?
I think
Yeah.
there's definitely keywords.
Reading
Yeah.
is crucial. The
Keywords to
keywords,
look for.
to look for are, like you said, the terms, the usage, of course, the rate, and those things like exclusive and perpetuity, how long this is going to be running. I haven't done any stock photography, but I have done print shoots. And in my print shoot um, contract, it would be like, a year or, 18 months or whatever. But I have some stuff that's still on these websites right now that's way beyond the contract, you know.
Mm.
So then I can technically go back to my agent and be like, hey, what were the terms? It said 18 months. Well, this is still sitting on their website as a new product and it's not.
And you should. And you should. And I've done it. I had to do it recently. For a product that we had did and that was only supposed to be this one commercial, and it happened to be under a SAG contract. And so I guess the company had like the cloud, and so they had put our footage into the cloud for 3 commercials that they shot with us, and someone else at the company pulled our things, and so just took like these like half a second snippets, I mean literally like super quick, like if you would watch this whole commercial and you would never even notice, like you like it's because it's
Hmm.
me, like you always zoom into yourself, right? But I didn't notice the other 2 people that had like their commercials, because as I said, like we each did, it was our point of view, and like we did like a full commercial of us, but they had all this kind of stock footage in the cloud. And so someone else at the company, not even at the location, around the world or whatever, they put all 3 of us in like a couple different commercials. I had happened to notice it. I contacted my agent. The other actor happened to notice it. So then they put us together. Turns out they had put us in like 3 commercials. SAG had to send us checks. So we got an extra
Wow.
few $1,000s because they used it, and they took them down. They were just like, oh God, like we had signed union actors. But again, they thought it was fine, and it wasn't intentional. So those are the kind of things, like, you need to have, as an actor, you need to have a folder of your contracts. And a lot of times they won't give you the contract. Like, you sign it, they didn't sign it, and like you're handing it over. Take a snapshot on your phone, or there's apps where you can like create a PDF. Keep these things, because if you ever see it 3-4 years down the line and you were like, I thought it was only for like a year, you can then go and be like, well, it's been up there for 3-4 years. It was only for 18 months. You owe me 18 months worth of
Mhm.
pay. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, don't be afraid to do this kind of stuff, especially if you're going through some kind of representation or something like that, because an agent can't keep track of all that stuff. That is where you need to come in and really make sure that you're protecting yourself and getting what you deserve. And it might be unintentional. It might be totally unintentional that like, oh yeah, we forgot to take this down. But like you did it for a certain amount of time.
Right.
So make sure that you're getting
Yeah,
that money.
you actually brought up you mentioned something and it had two things that sparked in my mind. You mentioned getting your contracts. I have had so many situations here in Las Vegas where I have booked it through somebody else. It wasn't through me. And I don't get contracts. They do not give me a contract. And I have asked for my contract and like, they're like, oh, it's fine because you're working through me and you've already signed a contract through me. And I'm like, okay, but you can be telling me XYZ. Like, I want to physically see it myself. And they just like, it's almost like it's not clicking for them. I'm like, I want to see my contract. And so there's a couple jobs that, yeah, I've never seen a contract and it drives me absolutely insane. I feel like that's so weird. I don't know if that's like if you guys have experienced that, but I'm like, can I see a contract, please? Like, what the heck?
You should be able to reach out. They should be able to give you your contract. There shouldn't be any hesitation or, of that. I don't actually have a lot of my contracts, but I have all my terms and my emails. And so it basically, they take all the information from the contract and they lay it out, and like they leave all the other jargon out so that I can just focus on whether or not I want to do this project or not.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been pretty good about it, but I can absolutely reach out to my agent and say, hey, I want that like the actual physical contract. For TV and film, you will get that contract no matter what. I don't care if you have a manager, agent, whoever, you're getting the contract on the day of and you're getting the contract before you even get there.
Yeah.
So that's totally different, but yeah.
You know what else I wanted to mention, Adrian? Because you talked about stock photography. I was chatting with another photographer here in Las Vegas, and he actually told me, and it like blew my mind because I'd never really thought about it. There's a huge casino here that actually just uses stock photography for their promotions and campaigns. And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like these are massive, massive casinos and companies. And every time, I'm walking in the halls of the casino and I'm around town, I look at the actors and I look at the ads all the time. I'm like, who is there? Who am I looking at? Which one of my friends can I find? And that's what he told. He goes, they actually just use stock photography. And I was like, stop it. Wait, what? I had no idea because I was always like, who are these actors and models? Where are they coming from? Are they coming from LA? Are they local? And yeah, they're actually stock photography, which I thought was a really interesting thing that he told me here. Who would have known? Okay, so I wanted to ask you guys next. The industry is crazy and it's hard. What motivates you to keep going during crazy times?
I'll leave that for Adrian to start.
Yeah.
I was gonna leave it for you to start. I mean, honestly, it's you have to create your own projects, like you do. Like you have to create your own stuff. You also have to find self-care. I mean, I've been in this game for definitely over a decade, and I'm definitely not where I want to be, but I keep on going because sometimes I've taken breaks. Like I've flat out, and it's amazing. Sometimes like you'll like take a break. You're like, I'm done. I quit. I'm not doing it anymore. And then like a project comes in, you're like, okay, I'll just do this last one, and then like I'll do another last one. But again, I mean, I've been doing this for over a decade. So for me, it's but like looking at the full picture, you get burnt out, especially when you're auditioning and right now, where you're not in the room, you don't get to feel the energy of what, did they like that? Did they not like that? You know what I mean? Like, ooh, that was awkward or whatever the case may be. Cause some like those energies necessarily aren't a good meter for how you did, but at least you feel like you got something. But with sending off these self-tapes, you're sending off your self-tape with literally 100 plus other self-tapes, and you have no idea where in this list that you stand. You don't know if you were sent off to production because they're only going to send off 5 or so to production. You know what I'm saying? 12 at the absolute most for consideration. So out of the 100, were you on the 12? Or were you just like, nope, there's 12 better ones or there's 5 better ones? You have no idea. So that can really start kind of hurting your heart. And you're just like, okay. But, the one thing that you do have to focus on and really do just try to find the positive is if that casting director calls you back. Like I've recently been called back 3 times for the same show by the same casting director. So I'm like, okay, hopefully one. Hopefully this is the
Mhm.
year. Like, I don't have to wait for season 2. Like, you know what I mean? But again, so I just have to find that as a positive. Does it make me feel amazing? No, because I'm a masochist. But at the end of the day, it's like no. I mean, that is a positive sign. And so you just have to focus on that. And as I said, self-care, exercise, hanging out with friends, having chats. Like that's why you and I, Kathleen, we talk all the time.
Mhm.
We're just like, did you see this? What's going on? Who did this? And then falling on the rabbit hole sometimes, you know what I mean? Which is not healthy, but at least it just lets you know, like you're staying in the action of what's going on. So I think there's a lot of different things, and things work differently for everybody. But being okay with quitting, I would say self-care, and find the little wins, like, focusing on those little wins that sometimes you think, because like you'll tell your friend, you'll just be like, "Ugh, I only had
Mhm.
2 auditions this week." And they're just like, I had
Yeah.
0. You know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah, I'm
finding
glad you
those little
said that
wins too.
about the burnout because I've experienced that. And this year has been dry as I don't know what. Like outside of my Super Bowl commercial, I had such a crazy year last year. I booked 14, 15 projects back to back to back. So I was very busy. I had well over 100 auditions, but this year I've had 3. And that's
Mm.
because I became union and then I
Ah.
got rid of my manager too. And it gave me like a forced break, but I needed this time. And like today, I kind of like said to myself, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and continue breaking. If something comes, it comes, but I'm not going to go vetting out auditions myself because I still need this time to like recoup. And I don't want to quit acting at all. It's just I'm burnt out. Last year really whooped my tail really, really bad. And I would also say to like have things that you like outside of acting, like Adrian said, like friends, having, chats with people and doing things that isn't acting. So
Mhm.
much we get so riled up about like, oh, everything I do has to be, and I'm notorious for this, like everything has to correlate with acting. And it's like, no, but who are you outside of that? Like, what do you like to do outside of, you know, acting? I just had my first audition. And then, like you said, Adrian, like, oh, I'll do it if they send it to me. I just had my first audition in 4 months last night. I was up till 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock this morning. And that's why you see my light back there, if you can see that,
Yeah.
because I actually had an audition. I had taken my setup down and everything. I've been so burnt out. And so, like, with the forced break, I kind of enjoyed it. Like, this break, I needed it. So I'm going to still do stuff as it comes, but I'm not going to vet it out until probably later this year, until I get my head on straight the way I want it to be. You have to do that self-care. And if that means stepping away from social media, because you're always in comparison of your peers. Oh man, Adrian booked another TV show. I haven't even got one audition. Like you said, your friend said they didn't get 0 and you had 2 in a week. That was me, 3, 4 in a week last year. And everybody was like, dang, I had one in months.
Mm.
And that's me now. It's, the up and down of the industry. But yeah, you got to take a step back sometime. Even if it's a forced break, don't let it eat you up, and think that you're a failure or that you can never bounce back, because you can. It's just a moment in time, and every actor goes through it. And every actor sometimes needs to pull back.
I think that's true.
And then to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, and I had kind of said, like if the creative spirit is still
Mhm.
calling to you, then create your own content, and don't feel like you can't, because we're like, I'm not a writer. Then find another writer, or just start jotting down some basic outlines. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, TikTok is such a quick, fast avenue of creating content. Do you know what I'm saying? So maybe turn this TikTok into a bigger thing, and then kind of go down that thing. But don't be afraid to do that as well, if the creative juices are still calling to you. But if they're not, grab that, drink, go in the
Right.
pool and just sit there. You know what
Yeah,
I
like
mean?
Caslin
They're
said,
both fine.
she mentioned earlier that I have a podcast. I do have a podcast, and this
Tell
was
us.
in response to, just people always in my DMs asking questions. How do you have confidence in this, that, and the third? But also, it's giving me something to do while I'm taking this break. It's still in the creative realm. It's still requiring that I edit. It's still requiring that I talk to people, and I'm talking about acting or just business in general, but it's still allowing me to create and do something with myself besides, you know, be in my woe is me phase because I'm not working. So yeah.
What's the name of your podcast? Tell us about it. Like, where can
Oh,
we find it? What's the
yeah.
name of it?
It's called Been Dope Podcast or the Been Dope Podcast. You can find it on every platform, including Riverside, Anchor, uh, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, every last one. I'm pretty much linked up with all of them in the RSS feed, and you can also catch it on YouTube, and it would be Ben Dope Podcast, and on Instagram Ben Dope Podcast, and that's been as in like I've been tired, I been dope, BEEN. So it's BEENDOPE podcast on Instagram and all platforms.
I'm going to link it in the comment section below. So if you guys want to check that out, just check out in the comment section here on YouTube if you're watching on the video, or if you are checking it out on any of the podcasting platforms where you'll be listening to Always Acting Up podcast. I think I agree with both of you ladies. I think breaks are really important. I myself have tried quitting so many times. It just doesn't work for me. I always go back to it. And so that's why I've kind of just accepted at this point that I'm just going to take breaks here and there. I feel like the industry auditions, it comes, it goes, it's going to be around. And yeah, social media is really challenging sometimes because people are always posting those highlight reels and you're like, well, there's got to be something wrong with me. And you're like, no, it's just social media and our own minds playing games with us. And I have one more question before we transition into our moment of positivity here. And I think this is really helpful for anyone who's listening. They may be at the beginning of their career or maybe, in their career and you take a step back to think. But what is something that you know now that you wish you would have known maybe 5 years ago? It's a good question, I know.
Well, for me, it's the usage and the in perpetuity. That's for me. I would say that. And even 5 years ago, when things were, well, I guess as I said, I've been doing this for longer than that. But I would say to any new actor, just be aware of it. Doesn't mean it's going to stop you from doing it. Just be aware of what you're doing and actually read the contract or actually read the release, I should say. And being okay to to say no. Hopefully you're saying no to the project being presented to you and not on set, because then for me, like, that's when my anxiety kicks in. You're just like, I don't want to sign this contract or this release. But I would say just be aware of it. I would never say do it or don't do it, but just be aware that if you are going to do something that is in perpetuity or is stock photography, you may see yourself 10 years down the line still doing this thing that you got paid $150 for. Just be aware
I think
of it.
for me, it has nothing to do with the contracts from 5 years ago. For me, I think for me, I would have said, take the leap sooner. When I was planning to come to LA, I would have said to my 5 year ago self, go ahead and go now. Don't wait. Just go now. Like, what are you waiting for? Because as soon as you get there, you're going to be broke anyway. So just don't go ahead and just do it. Because something about LA, you can come out here with $15,000 and be broke in a month, but do it do it anyway right now and don't hesitate. That's what I would say to myself. And as it pertains to contracts and everything, I don't really, I would probably say don't do the in perpetuity. If I had known about in perpetuity, I would probably say don't do that for sure.
Yeah.
If I had known what I know now, for sure.
Mine would just be read the contract in general. Anyways.
Yeah.
All right. So we are at the end of our podcast here. We are at the moment of positivity, and I like to give my guests the honors of sharing maybe one of their favorite quotes or something that I guess I kind of already asked you, but maybe something that really motivates you to keep going during. Oh, there you were, Adrian. You left for a second. There you are. Yeah, so if you guys have a favorite quote or something that has kept you motivated, I would be honored if you have something to share.
My favorite quote is to whom much is given, much is required. And that keeps me in check as far as like what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Because I understand that the path and the shoes that I'm walking in, I have other people watching me. And so I need to keep myself in check to always be of service and always to understand that I have responsibility. I have responsibility in what we do. I'm not famous yet, but even with whatever I'm doing, people are looking to me to be some kind of example. And so I understand that based off of that quote just alone. It's like, to whom much, like, I've had the opportunity, I've had so many blessings, so many great things happen. I have to be a great um, role model in in many ways, you know?
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
my social responsibility.
I feel that also. I used to teach kids, and that kinda changed my perspective a lot of different things because they literally watch everything you do, and I was like, "You know what? I'm not a family member to them, but I am a role model of some sort," and I would be absolutely devastated if one of these kids that I were teaching maybe went down a wrong path because of something I did or something I said. So I was like, "No, I gotta be better than this, and I gotta." That's one of the biggest reasons for my podcast is I need to be sharing the informations of the good and the bad that I learned along the way because I feel like
Yeah.
we were talking before the podcast, I feel like I didn't have access to the information that's available now, and had I did, I'm a person who researches a lot, and I wanna make sure that I'm always, making the best decisions possible. Um, it just wasn't available when I started, and so, yeah, that is my biggest goal with this podcast, so I completely agree with that. All right, now Adrian, do you have a moment of positivity that you would like to share with us?
Yes. Something that I found within like the recent year, if not like a little bit more, is I am enough. I think it's just
Mm,
super important because when I first moved to LA, my big thing was like trying to be like what I saw on television, thinking I could be the hot girl, I could be, cute and things like that. And I never really accepted myself for who I was. I've always been kind of quirky and kind of weird and kind of awkward and just accepting it. And then also finding out better, who I am. Like I always struggled with that. And so this is me. No one else can portray this character the way that I am portraying it. Nobody. I can do it similar to someone else, but they can't do it exactly the way that I'm going to do it. So I am enough. If this is not what you want, I have to accept that and just be like, okay, this is not, you didn't want this flavor of chocolate today. Do you know what I'm saying? And that's okay. You didn't want Rocky Road, you just wanted plain old chocolate. That's okay. Like you wanted a little bit more things like that. And that's okay. And so, I just realize you are enough. Who you are, the way you are, the way you look, the way you walk, talk, dance, all that stuff. You are enough.
yeah, I wish I would have known that earlier in my years as well. That's really great. Sometimes it's not just you, it's everything else around you and that's the reason why you're not being selected. It's not you, it's everything else. Well, I love that, and I appreciate you guys sharing all of your information with us. How can we follow Crystal? How can we follow you on social media if we want to stay in contact with you and check out all of your stuff?
All right, you can find me on Instagram. That's my playground. It's Crystal Gix _ That's CrystalGi as an igloo and X as an X-ray and an underscore.
X-ray, I love it. Adrian, how can we stay in touch and follow you?
It is Adrienne McLean on Instagram as well. I've got my LinkedIn there so you can see all the different things I've been doing and my web series and all of that good stuff on Instagram. So Adrienne, ADRIANE _MCLEAN.
I will definitely be posting both of those in the comments below so you guys can make sure to actually follow those and stay in touch and stay up to date. Is there anything else? You guys have been super amazing with sharing your knowledge and insight and stories and successes. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us before we head out for this episode?
Thank you for having me. This has been therapeutic, to be honest.
It is. Sometimes it's just nice to talk about like things that go on and successes and collaborate and get ideas and inspiration. So yeah, I mean that's a big reason why I like this podcast as well.
Yes, thank you so much for having us and having this conversation. I hope it helps someone out there.
I think it would. I think it's a really informative conversation topics in perpetuity, guys. Really pay attention, do your research, and ask for those contracts. Well, everyone, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Always Acting Up podcast, which you can find on all podcasting platforms and the video here on YouTube. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, And if you're feeling really fancy today, go ahead and leave a comment because those are really nice. Yeah, I think that's it. You guys, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day. There it goes.